presented by allaccessretail.com. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. Join Mike Graan as he sits down with Justin Patton, director of Auburn University's RFID lab, to discuss what is new in RFID for retail this year and beyond. Let's get started.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Mike Graan here with another podcast with Justin Patton from the Auburn RFID lab. Justin's been working on the lab and RFID back when he was a student at the University of Arkansas. And I guess Justin started the lab in 2005, was there for several years. Now it got moved to the Auburn facility, which ironically enough, Auburn and Arkansas just played football, and that didn't turn out so well from Auburn. But hey, we're glad we finally got a win because we never beat Auburn at anything. So thank you very much for being here. We really do appreciate it. We're going to talk about everything RFID and what are the new capabilities in 2024. So Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
All right, dude. Well, we've done lots of these, so you know the drill. Sent you the questions ahead of time. I'm just kind of looking for, okay, we did this last year. What's new? What's hot? Anything you can share? I'm just trying to me, there's two things that, in my opinion, are starting to pick up. Mm-hmm. One is food, not QSR, but I mean, really RFID in food. Mm-hmm. The other one is people are starting to finally get outside of the store and start to look at things up the supply chain. Those are the two big wows for me that, gosh, it's taken a long time, but we're starting to make some progress. But anything you want to be sharing about, hey, here are the trends in the industry and the way that Auburn can help the industry with that would be super, because I think this helps people understand exactly what Auburn does.
Sure. One of the things we haven't talked about before, and we really try to, there's three fundamental things that we're trying to do with RFID, with barcodes, with human counts, any system. I don't care what it is, any technology. When we're trying to manage inventory, you have a certain amount of physical stuff that is in a space. It's reality, okay? And then you have some type of system of record, whether it's a computer or clipboard or whatever you may have. So all these systems, all this time, are constantly trying to reconcile, like, what do we have in our system versus what is physically there. Yep. So in any of those systems, we have to establish three things beyond a shadow of a doubt to know that whatever we have counted is what is actually there, so that we can upgrade it to our system. One thing that we have to know is that we have to have the items set up properly. Okay. So if it's a barcode, then the item has to be barcoded and registered so that we can recognize it as a SKU. If it's an RFID tag, it has to have the right RFID tag on the product, and it has to be encoded properly and serialized so we can recognize it. If it's some type of an active tag, it has to have their thing on there. Even if it's just a hand count, it has to have a label on there, if like it's jeans, so that the person who's looking at it can say, oh, this is the size and color and style of jeans, to mark it down the list. So one thing we have to know is that the item is set up properly. The second thing that we have to know is whatever technology that we're using is fundamentally capable of doing what we ask it to do. So if it's a barcode scanner, then it is the correct kind of barcode scanner or laser or whatever, so that we can actually scan that thing. If it's an RFID scanner, then we have to know that we have got the right tags in the readers, so that we can scan those things when we do them, or the right type of overhead or the right type of robot. Doesn't matter what it is. It's the physics, right? So whatever that system is, it has to be capable. If it's a human that's out there counting it, I mean, if you need glasses like me, you better have your glasses on, because you don't have the capability to capture that properly. So making sure the item's set up properly, making sure that we have the physical capability to capture those things. And the third thing that we have to prove is execution, so that we're executing fully. So again, going back to those counting systems, did they actually count everything? Did they go through the whole area? If it's an RFID count, did they actually walk the whole space? Or if it's an overhead or a robot that doesn't require human intervention, was that thing active and the inventory was moved through there? Or did the robot go around or whatever? So if you can prove fully and verify that the items are set up properly, that you have the right tech solution in place that's capable of counting those things, and that you have executed fully on everything you need to execute to make sure that that happens. Once those three things are established, then you know that you have a good inventory count and a good inventory system. So from there, that's where everything drives. So from the lab, we have whole programs set up on the physics side of it. That's the ARC program. We have a whole program set up on the supplier compliance side of it. That's the ALEC program. And then the execution piece is a lot of the data and the audits and stuff and back and forth and everything too. So no matter what the industry is and what it is, and that's a long way to answer your question, we've been trying to firmly establish and find ways to preach that message of these are the things that you have to keep your eye on the ball if you want to make sure that your system works. And the nice thing is, in all these systems, you can independently monitor those. And there's ways to independently monitor those. So that's how we build confidence and consistency and counts and make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be.
That's great perspective. And that's really helpful. The challenge becomes if you're a pure play retailer, you could probably leverage RFID to do that. If you're a great big mass merchandiser, you're going to have RFID, you're going to have scanning, you're going to have computer vision, you're going to have all these other stuff. How in the world do you to put all that together? That to me is the trick of that, because every single item will have to have some signal that says, here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. They could be different across a big retailer like a Walmart or a Target or something like that. How do you combine all that stuff together? That to me is the hard part.
This is a key point, I think, with these multi-sensor systems is we do not talk enough, and we still have not crossed that hump into true serialized inventory. So like we are operating in a world where we are all wandering around in a fog of uncertainty when it comes to inventory. And I'm not talking about warehouses or restaurants or retail stores. I'm just talking about life. I mean, if you look around your office or you look around your house, and I'm fond of saying this to people, like you ask somebody, how many pair of shoes do you own? 9 people out of 10 can't answer. One lady did answer very directly. She had a very detailed inventory of everything she owned. That was very impressive. But most people, they don't know. They don't know how many shoes they have. You don't know how many plates you have. You don't know how many tools you have in your garage. If anybody's ever lived through any kind of a catastrophic event like a flood or a fire, you know how hard it is to deal with the insurance company because most people just don't know what we have. Right. How many times have y'all bought stuff because that you already have at home because you forgot you got it, whether it's a tool or a socket or something else too. And we live in a world of uncertainty when it comes to the things that are around us, and we're used to it. And we carry that into all the aspects of our lives, so whether it's a work or whatever it may be. And the reality is, it does not matter what your job is. Even if your job is working from a laptop from home, you have an inventory. Like you have at least a laptop or a computer or a pencil or pen or something like that too. So we are not to the point yet to where we are applying a specific identity to all of those items. Once we do, it does not matter what type of sensor you apply to it. It does not matter if you're using computer vision. It does not matter if you're using RFID, barcode, nothing, serial number. As long as it's able to reconcile back to one specific item, then we're dealing in a world of specificity. And then it's not just a matter of groups of things appear and disappear. It's a matter of individual items that we're tracking through. And really at its fundamental core, most of what we're doing here, Mike, it's not technology, it's accounting, right? So it's changing accounting standards and practices, which a lot of people are very familiar with if they've ever tried to do annualized inventory audits for their financial reporting or anything like that too. But it's just a different way of counting things more so than all the technologies that you see on the surface.
Yeah. We have not posted it yet, but we had a really good conversation with Joe Cole, Vice President of Asset Protection with Macy's, and Randy Dunn from Zebra, who's been literally looking at asset protection and from Sensormatic and a Zebra perspective for a long, long time. One of the things that we talked about is combining technologies together for a single item. And the use case was using RFID for asset protection. Literally, you can measure what went through the register versus what left the store. The problem is that most people are saying, here's what left the register at a G10 level, so a UPC level, if you will. What left the store is at a serialized level. So 5 shirts got sold, 10 left the store, 5 of them probably got taken for whatever reason, but you can't tell me which 5, right? And so we started talking about, well, I know you and I've talked about potentially every single item maybe have a different signal, one being RFID and one being a GS1 2D barcode. The key is they've got to have the same serial number or we're going to have a chaos, right? Complete chaos. But do you see more of that happening where we literally have, redundant signals for a single item that help capture it at different points in the supply chain?
Yeah, we're getting there. And I think you see people coming at it from different angles that don't even realize. So, GS1 talks about Sunrise, which is their concept of moving us over to they've kind of changed the wording on a little bit, but some type of a 2D data matrix or identifier, moving away from a direct 1D barcode.
Yep.
I kind of like to strengthen the messaging to like, we are looking for a serialized inventory future. So in the world you're describing, Puma was the first company, I think, to fully integrate their 2D barcode with their RFID tag. Now, Nike and Under Armour and others in the past have done a good job of linking the 2D barcodes or the QR codes or the anti-counterfeiting identifiers with the SG10 on the RFID tag and the UPC. My understanding is that Puma is the first one that has the same SG10 on the 2D barcode that's on that particular product, and that is fully linked on the back end, so that no matter which way you pull those, you're going to pull the same number back off of that item. And then we've got other people who are going on that same path. So, 2 drivers for Sunrise, P&G was being a big driver of that. A lot of the P&G products you pick up and and love so well, Mike, you'll start seeing QR codes on the back of those. Coca-Cola is driving some of that too.
Pepsi for sure.
Pepsi. And they're not serialized yet,
right?
But we're heading down that road of, we all see where this is going quickly. So we don't matter how we get there. Whatever puts that identity on there first at a per unit level is fine, as long as all of those sensors are using it appropriately and consistently. And it really makes it very easy to see the future when it comes to technology in a lot of ways, because you deal with this too, and I see this every day. I got people asking me about 57 new technologies, and a lot of them are data services. The first question you can ask yourself, the easy one, and what's going to stick and what's not, is it a proprietary numbering system? It's out. It's not going to happen. So if it's on open standards, great. Even if it's in a vertical org or something like that, in the long term, you're just making life hard on yourself. So as long as you're operating on consistent open industry standards, because you're going to be stacking those sensors together, the single sensor system is a thing of the past. And the second thing that we ask people when they're evaluating a new technology, if they tell you that they're replacing or competing with another technology, again, they missed the point. It's out. I don't know how many times we've gone to like a POS system or something like that, and we say, oh, we're doing this. And it's like, we don't need that. We already have that with RFID. We already have that with CV. I said, if you think that you are going to do this with one sensor, then you missed the point. The whole point is to have multiple sensor confirmation on a serialized unit level identity. We start stacking that confidence layer on there, and then that's the true flexible future, I guess.
Wiliot's visibility platform connects the digital and physical worlds using IoT pixels, battery-free smart tags that push data to the cloud in real time without human intervention. Their mission is to make every single thing an agent of change, enabling ambient IoT by adding intelligence and automation to food, apparel, packaging, pharmaceuticals, and other products. Learn more at Wiliot.com.
So Auburn University, specifically the RFID lab, led an initiative in 2018, which I was absolutely thrilled to be part of, called CHIP, Chain Integration Pilot. And it was a nice way of saying we've really leveraged RFID and serialized data at the store level to know what we have and where it's located for the most part. We're almost going back to 2005 when we started RFID at Walmart, which is tracking things throughout the supply chain. And the business drivers were basically claims elimination, product authentication, and shrink. Those numbers were out there and they were huge. And we were looking at EPCIS and blockchain and all that kind of stuff. We fast forward to 2024. I think both of us would agree we haven't made as much progress as we would like to, but it feels like the industry is very primed to be starting to take advantage of some of this new capability. Where do you think this is really, really? Because it's an incredible concept, but it's also extremely difficult to do.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. Like, the tags are there on a large segment of the supply chain. There's a lot of stuff that's been tagged for a very, very long time. Yeah. And, we have opportunities to have been leveraging those within DC and supply chain operations that are often people just don't avail themselves of. But I also know that, like, I don't mean to single anybody out in particular, but if you go to a lot of DCs, the way that we run DCs is not modern. A lot of times. I mean, you'll see a lot of barcode scanners and you hear about WMS systems and things like that too, but we don't tend to mess with DCs. And then COVID, even though it uncovered a lot of, holes in the supply chain, I think what it really did is make a lot of people turtle down and say, hey, let's just get a process we know and love and stick with it. And then, just force our way through when it comes to the labor component of that. So I think we're starting to see some forward-thinking suppliers that are really kind of getting a handle on that. Polo and Ralph Lauren, Jockey and some of the others too, Hanes, like a lot of the folks on the apparel side that are pushing volume, that are really interested in it, that are starting to develop those solutions. But I also think that we're suffering from a lack of mature technology solutions in the supply chain, especially in the RFID world and even in the CV world too. I think it's the wheel, right? Like you said, we started in 2005 with all this case and pallet level stuff, and a lot of that went away, and now we're coming back to it. But the tech has been so store focused. I mean, if you want to do RFID in a retail store right now, you go buy yourself a handheld and you start cycle counting. I mean, you can do that today. If you look at a DC, you're going to get 9 different answers to how should I light up this DC, and they're not. I feel sometimes direct value driven. They're more focused on selling a lot of hardware. So we don't have enough good success stories out there where people have showed that you can really lock down and trust this tech to be able to transition it from partner to partner. And I think it's just kind of a lack of imagination on some of the solution providers and hardware provider space, and then also a lack of imagination, I think, on the part of some of the product manufacturers that are, I say imagination, just knowledge of what you can do with having unit level visibility and trust that this is going to be something besides something that your retail customer asked you to do as a cost of business. How do they embrace it, start using it to enhance their operational value?
Yeah. Well, the demo you had built at the lab, and I'm not sure if it's still up and running or not, but the chip demo that you had in the lab opened a lot of people's eyes about what the opportunity was. Man, if I transmit serialized data and I ship 20 pairs of jeans that you ordered and I ship them all, and you come back and go, I only got 10, I'm going to claim them. You go, nope, here's the 20 I sent you. Here's the license plates, the serial numbers of each one of them. I'm not paying you $1 because I could prove when I put them on the truck, they were there. Mm-hmm. That seems like a logical place for most retailers to start, from a receiving that product directly from the supplier, for 2 reasons. Number one, the whole claims measurement. Number two, if you're going to find some product that's incorrectly RFID encoded, that's where you want to catch it. You don't want to go all the way through the DCs to 100 stores and go, oh crap, we got some stuff that's incorrectly tagged. I can't figure out why, at the point of receiving at a distribution center, why retailers aren't investing heavily in trying to, basically when it transfers from the supplier to them, they wouldn't want to capture that information and push it through the supply chain. Is it the technical issue that you said, or is it just business drivers, or because it was, again, we did this in 2008. Mm-hmm. I had that real long. 2018.
Right.
And now we're at 2024. I just haven't seen the industry adopt what you guys had laid out, which I think made all the sense in the world.
With a lot of it, just talking about RFID in particular here, there's a time component to these systems that's discounted a lot of times. So if you cycle count a warehouse, or you cycle count a store, you cycle count it once a week, twice a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it may be. But there's a repetition factor to this. So RFID is not a camera flash where we flash the room and then here's everything in there. It's more of it's a strobe. So we're constantly like lighting that space up and counting stuff in there. It's not a shout, it's a drum beat, right? So like when you cycle count over time, the value of the cycle counts was, instead of doing an inventory count once a year or twice a year, we're doing an inventory count once a week or once every 2 weeks. So we get a lot of different shots at these items. And I think that helps increase confidence, because going back to those three things we talked about with supplier execution, the store execution, and then also the technology readiness, the more you repeat those, the better you can build confidence in those. I think one of the issues we've had at the DC is that we don't have mature systems for receiving yet. Even at the store, a lot of times we treat it like you got one shot. When it goes through that dock door, we got to scan everything that's in there, and then once it's past that dock door, then it's gone. So then you try to match up a count there that happened in, maybe 1 to 2 seconds with all the stuff upstream. And we're putting too much of a constraint or a choke on there. So I think what we're seeing in, especially the stores with fixed infrastructure, I mean, you've seen this, Mike, like it ain't about just the readers at the receiving door. It's all the readers throughout the space that are going to pick up those items as they move throughout the store or throughout the warehouse or throughout the restaurant. And then that's how you kind of build out a mature, full picture of what's happening, rather than trying to compress this down to a big giant wad of stuff and expect that to all scan at one particular point in time. Mm-hmm. And I think it does require a little bit more trust and maturity in all these systems to have that full infrastructure out there to where you're ready to use it. Because not everybody's shipping boxes of towels where it's easy to scan at a dock door. So I think that there has been a little bit of again, it's just going to take a while for all of the technology to get out there and get enough sensors in that space to where it really, really is working.
Yeah, and you just uncovered something that we've really learned the hard way in the retail space, which is they used to call what I would call things like choke points. That was that word that they use. Hey, it's a single kind of portal right here, run it through here, and you'll count everything. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen, right? You're not going to catch it all. So the way I've seen it be successful is, maybe it's a term that industry uses, which is control point, which is probably a single portal plus another couple readers, plus another couple readers. You need to build up enough readers and antenna that basically say, I've got a number of times to catch this, and establish what I would consider to be some kind of a minimum viable read point, which is I want to be able to read at least 98% or 97% of the things that are in the box, even if it's really tightly compressed. That doesn't mean just putting one reader over door and call it good, because you may get 75%. You're not going to get anywhere close to where you probably have to be to have accounting grade kind of accuracy. Would you agree with that?
Oh, the greatest disservice that I ever personally did to this space, and I was guilty of it for years, is that dock door portal demo we had down at the Arkansas lab, at the first lab, and the second one, and even ran in years. Like, I don't know how many years we spent like standing up readers at a loading dock door and then showing people pushing, a pallet full of t-shirts in there and saying, look, there's 200 t-shirts in this pallet, and look, you can see them all on the screen. And it came from the concept of like, hey, we're showing how quickly you can scan these things. But we gave people, I think, the wrong impression that, the reality is, and everybody listening, I'm happy to stand up on the mountain and say this. If you were using a loading dock door, the purpose of a loading dock door with RFID is you need pallet level or case level visibility.
Yep.
You are not going to see unit level visibility at loading dock doors, especially for a large load of stuff coming down through there. Somebody's going to tell you I'm wrong and that they've seen it before I ask it. Go look at it then, because I've been doing this for 19 years and I haven't seen one. So I don't think that the tech kind of works. It's not a drumbeat. That's a flash in time. So I think that helping people understand that value of nested visibility, helping people understand like when is the appropriate time to scan these things, and helping make sure that we have redundancy in operations, especially in the scanning operations, as much as possible, is very helpful to do that too. But I feel like we have kind of focused on what happened is in 2005, when we were really focused on these case level and pallet level dock door scans, we took some of those same techniques over into the item level world, when that was the wrong lever to pull when we started moving on item level RFID. And that became apparent because, think about it this way, It's not going to take you long to learn that a handheld is not an awesome solution for a loading dock door. I mean, it's just not made for it.
Right.
It's great for item level on a shelf, not great for a loading dock door. Same thing for some of those dock doors when it comes to unit level stuff too. Different tools are made for different jobs, I guess, if you will.
Now, in fairness, there's some people out there doing it, but they have a different approach, which is they have a hierarchy. All of these 30 items are in this box.
Mm-hmm.
All of these boxes are on this pallet. They know that child to parent relationship. So if I read a pallet, I can deduce what's all in the box, in the cases and in the items. So I don't want to say you can't do that, but there's a lot of forethought that has to go into, I know what items are in which boxes are in which pallet, and be able to do that, because passing it through one single portal, you're not going to read every single item in that. In no way.
And that's a great point. So there's discovery and there's validation. Okay. Yeah. So discovery means I don't know what all these unit level or serialized numbers are there, and I'm going to discover everything that's in that space.
Right.
And that takes a little bit of effort. Validation, to your point, is like, okay, I already have this case and it has a 128 case code on there. It can be a barcode. And then these EPCs or RFID numbers are assigned to that. I don't have to see all of them. I can just see one or two units per each one of those boxes to assume that box is there, and that will help. And I think that I can give a real live example of that, airplanes. So when commercial aviation, before they take off on a flight, they go out there and they do a cycle count of the safety equipment in the cabin. Now, they're not discovering all the RFID tags on all the life jackets and the safety equipment in that cabin. They already know everything that's supposed to be there. So when they're scanning that's scanning off a list and saying, okay, there's 312 pieces of safety equipment in here. I just scanned through here and it looks like I got, 311. Oh, which one's missing? Oh, well, I'm supposed to have a life vest on row 12F. It looks like I don't see one. Oh, well, let's go back to 12F and see what happened. Yep. So that's not discovery, that's validation. And I think to your point, like there are some good solutions that can be based on like validating or proving that something is where it was supposed to be. But that's more about making a state change in location rather than taking or creating a new inventory identity into a space, if you will.
That's a huge way. That distinguishing between discovery and validating is a huge unlock. They sound like the same words, but they are absolutely different. One is, I don't know what I got. Let me see it. The other one is, I expect these things, and which ones didn't I get? And I think you're exactly right. Well, you kind of love the segue. I mean, the reality is you've been involved with RFID at retail since literally 2005, since I've known you and been part of the lab. Mm-hmm. But you're now getting into a lot of different verticals. As a matter of fact, you started an executive committee, which includes air travel, quick service restaurants, package, I don't know what you call it, package distribution, basically UPS, FedEx, et cetera, and retail. What's the purpose of that? Why are you getting all of those folks to work together? Are there common business needs across them? Is it to set priorities? What exactly are you hoping to get out of that?
It's a good question. So the executive committee, it consists of the prime movers in 4 verticals, like you said, and then also Dr. Hargrave, who's kind of our academic lead or chair of that committee. So, in the retail world, we've got Walmart on the executive committee. That's Matt Alexander. He's been a driver for supplier compliance for a long time. And, there's a lot of retailers out there, but in terms of pushing volume, Walmart was the first one, the case and pallet level stuff, and they kind of help trend out some of the directions in the future. And then in aviation, we have Delta Airlines. Delta's been a great partner of ours. And again, they're kind of the prime mover for innovation, especially in RFID and their arena for aerospace and aviation. For packaging and logistics, we've got UPS. UPS has been in the news quite a bit about their plans for RFID, and they're kind of the most focal, I think, out there in that packaging and logistics space, and they're pretty good representative for that part of the market. And then also for food and QSRs, we have McDonald's. That's Sue Fangman. I guess I should say Demetra Daniels is at Delta Airlines, and then John Bell at UPS, and then Sue Fangman at McDonald's. So, and McDonald's is kind of like, as a restaurant, they're pretty big in terms of mover, especially when it plans for RFID world. So between those 4, what we're trying to do is, in the past, we've treated these technologies, especially RFID, as one vertical versus one vertical versus one vertical. Mike, we're coming up on 20 years of my involvement in that space, and C1G2 RFID has been around as long as I've been in the industry, right? So how many versions of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? And I mean, we can improve things in 20 years, surely,
Right.
especially from a technology perspective. So there's better techniques that we have for source tagging. There's better techniques we have for scanning things. I think that there's some real fundamental changes that we can make to UHF technology itself to make it better. A lot of the stuff that we loaded into these tags and chips back in 2005, when this was a few million tag market, are not really relevant in 2024, 2025, now that we're looking at a 50 billion unit market. So I think that that group can help leverage a little bit more of a collective interest to drive the things that we don't have a heavy focus on, especially attention to data and data transfer, and then also things like driving technology adoption from a bigger perspective. We went to some of the companies that are doing a lot of the back-end data systems, and had a very large data company. We went and asked them at one point about helping set up some more mature systems for transitioning serialized data. EPCIS is a great standard. Now we need to make sure that we have ways to actually, send stuff around, whether it was like chip project or whatever. And this person kind of spent a long time explaining to me why he didn't think that we would see RFID at an item level on electronics and toys and home goods and a lot of things. And I'm like, all right, tag, buddy. So like, I feel like that there's a lack of knowledge and education and maturity outside of our space. There's a real lack of knowledge outside of the world of, UHF RFID. And then even within it, there's not enough coordination to kind of go after some of the easier wins.
But those four verticals that we just kind of laid out, they have some common interests as well. I mean, when you get right down to it, they want to know what they have and when they want to know where it is, right? I mean, that's true in all of those verticals. So are you able to leverage information of things you learned in one vertical across those verticals pretty effectively?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every time we have one of those meetings, there's so many things that one will learn that is immediately applicable to another space that you just wouldn't think about. Trying to think of a great example off the top, but there's a lot more in common between baggage handling in an airline operation and package handling and, a ground shipping operation, or especially air shipping operation. And you might think like, if you're putting boxes on a shipment from an online retailer to a person's house, that's not terribly dissimilar from someone who's checking a bag on an airline from one destination point to another. So these systems that are designed for one may be valuable to another. Bag handling operations underneath an airport, if you've been down in one of those things, it's wild. It's like, the only thing I saw for aircraft operations growing up was Die Hard 2 when he's running around into the airport. And it's not like that, but there's a lot of automation stuff, which is pretty similar to what you would see in the DC and the retail world, and the retail space too. And a lot of the hard lessons we've learned about supplier compliance and getting a lot of suppliers to tag things, I think are very practical when you're moving into the food space, because they also have a lot of suppliers that need to leverage value out of this, and they don't want to have to learn the same hard lessons about printers and application and serialization, things like that too. So beyond the real simple, like just knowledge sharing pieces of like, this is how we can help you and help you and help you, I think we're really trying to learn how to leverage the weight of all of those industries together to drive it forward. I think what's happened now is a lot of these industries are very reactive to the technologies available in the space. What do you got out there? How can I implement it? Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, they were very proactive. I think a lot of these industries are going out there and saying, this doesn't exist yet, but I want it. That's how we got the first infrastructure systems and things like that. So we're trying to recapture that spirit of let's plant the flag and move towards it, rather than just sit back and to try to figure out how we're going to use what's being